Former New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg is still considering launching a bid for the Democratic nomination. Over the weekend, he apologized for one of his most well-known policies, stop and frisk. It's a New York police tactic that critics argued led to racial profiling. Here's part of the apology.
Now, hindsight is 20/20. But as crime continued to come down as we reduced stops, and as it continued to come down during the next administration, to its credit, I now see that we could and should have acted sooner and acted faster to cut the stops. I wish we had. I'm sorry that we didn't. But I can't change history. However, today, I want you to know that I realized back then I was wrong, and I'm sorry.
Khary Lazarre-White is a racial justice advocate and attorney. He's also co-founder and executive director of the Harlem-based nonprofit Brotherhood Sister Soul, which was active in speaking out and taking action to end stop and frisk. So, Khary, what's your opinion of this? But first of all, can you remind everybody what stop and frisk was all about?
So stop and frisk is a symptom of broken windows policing. It's an approach to policing particular communities, in this case, Black and Latino communities here in New York City, that was different and disparate than other communities. Under the law, a Terry stop, the police have to have a reasonable suspicion to stop somebody, something that they can articulate. There were 10 million stops during the Bloomberg administration over 12 years, 10 million. In 95% of those cases, there was no crime committed, no warrant, no gun, no drugs. So they were wrong 95% of the time, which certainly doesn't reach a level of reasonableness. But the second part that's so invasive is that the mayor announced this as a policy to get guns off the street and to stop violence. In 0.1% of the cases, a weapon was found and somebody was prosecuted. 0.1%. So you have 10 million stops of hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers. Some stopped 30 times, 20 times, 10 times. I was stopped twice. This is at gunpoint, the night, in streets, in Harlem, and in Bed-Stuy. And just imagine what that feels like, what that invasive destruction of your sense of protection and privacy is in a moment, and now multiply that by 10 million stops.
So you just said that you yourself was stopped and frisked.
Yes.
So tell us about that and how that felt, and then your reaction to what Mayor Bloomberg said, and is an apology enough?
Well, you have a constitutional right and an expectation of privacy when you walk down the street to be safe as a person walking through the streets of New York. The reality is that police have created a situation where all too often Black and brown people do not feel safe. And the mayor's policy allowed that to run rampant. The feeling of having no security in your body, in yourself, being pointed at you on a dark street when you're scared for your life, when you're thinking about your family or your loved ones. And the result of that interaction is not even an apology, but actually the building of a database of people's records and, in certain cases, people's DNA. What happens in response to that? And so an apology doesn't feel commensurate with 10 million stops, the violation of your privacy, and the feeling of losing complete control over who you are and your safety in this city.
Michael Bloomberg was mayor of New York City for 12 years.
Correct.
Do you think this will be the last word in the era of aggressive policing?
Aggressive policing has been a part of America since its founding. Modern police forces are based on the protection of property and the oversight of enslaved people and later released enslaved people. So it's been an aspect of this country since its founding. It continues. The mayor's policy was emblematic of that. And I think until we come to terms with mass incarceration, the over-policing of Black and brown communities, the business connected to it, but the politics connected to it, we won't see a change. And so is an apology enough? Absolutely not.
You also brought up the politics part of it.
Correct.
He's expected to put his hat in the nomination to run for president of the United States. Do you think the timing is all just too off? 12 years later, you've been asking for an apology. You haven't gotten it, and now you get one?
Well, there was pushback and defiance for the 12 years of his mayoralty, but also the 6 years post his mayoralty. And so he and Commissioner Kelly and others continued to defend a discredited policy. They attacked the federal judge who found it to be unconstitutional, racially disparate. So for 18 years, it was supported and defended. And now just as he's announcing his presidential campaign, the apology comes forward. So it's certainly it is something that I can't take seriously. It's something that, to me, is discredited. And it also would only have to be the beginning of a restorative justice approach of this should be the beginning of trying to respond to the hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers who, remember, he was elected to protect and serve, and what will be done to rectify all of those years of damage.
Khary Lazarre-White, thank you.
Thank you.